what I would like to see from In Memory of Michael in game number 2 at least would be for them to kind of anticipate this heavy front line deposition from Obey Alliance. I mean, they've been notorious for it so far, and not even this split, but also in the summer split as well, where it seemed to be a reoccurring theme for Obey to get these warriors and guardians online just to ensure that their carries could be protected at all times.
And something we didn't talk about enough in that Flash game was RDO being played by Dwurst, of how successful he was in terms of invading the blue and the speed buff almost on cooldown.
Yeah, this Hog has been absolutely clutch for Dwurst. He's been all over the place, and at any time that you don't see Dwurst participating in a team fight during the first 20 minutes of a match, you can bet he's probably in your jungle stealing all of your buffs.
Memory of Michael first picking the Thoth for Crimson. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think Thoth is the best selection that they can have here. Good offensive and defensive capabilities. Xing Chen, though, will be picked with that RDO ban.
It's not even just the Xing 10 that's an option, though. It's going to be that Ravana right before I could even say it. The insta-lock comes through. And again, this is still a pick that could go either way, although I would have to anticipate a little bit less of Jelly taking the Warrior this time.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Jelly to take the Warrior, but either way, Nemesis selected very early, trying to eliminate some of this front line protection coming out of Obey.
And it still has a decent amount of setup. Between the slows already being provided by the Nemesis, you also have the Terra route coming into play, making things all the easier for Crimson in that mid lane.
So big. This is the recurring theme for Obey. They just pick their 3 frontliners, and then they make you guess what they're going to pick for Zachary and Delta Marine. Last time, it was the Soul and the Uller. I wouldn't be surprised if they go for a similar option, but with the Chronos ban, Memory of Michael really trying to limit some of those in-hand mages.
And when it comes to Sobek, I mean, whichever side gets it is just taking it away from the other more than anything else. For In Memory of Michael, Delany running that Sobek not only because he loves it, but because it's one of Jelly's go-tos, and we've seen Dwurst play it.
Not fearful of the Soul, more fearful of the Hebo that was in play. Delta Marine is actually really well known and respected for his Hobwa play. Taking that option away from Obey Alliance forces him back into the Soul. Very comfortable with that mage ADC.
A lot of AoE, though, coming out from In Memory of Michael with the Hu Yi and Kukulkan selections. So a decent bit of team synergy that could come out here, depending on how they choose to utilize these ults.
Apollo got locked in.
Yep.
I'm happy.
You're always,
I'm happy. I'm always on my Apollo grind.
It's because you're cosplay for Apollo, isn't it?
I mean, one day we'll put a suit on Apollo, mark my words. Kukulkan and Hou-Yi will wrap up the picks for Memory of Michael. Apollo for Obey Alliance. Good use of global pressure potentially. You have to have some sort of synergy between your mid-hunter here to melt these towers, and Soul Apollo, pretty 2 good gods to combo that.
And that's probably the primary mindset here, is that with the Terra being available for In Memory of Michael, they're going to always have some form of global pressure due to that Terra's blessing. So if you have Zaxi to try and counteract some of that by being able to freely rotate to those team fights, Kenji won't be there as fast as an Apollo ult. Nobody is going to ever outrun the Apollo ult.
And as long as Zaxi is quick on the trigger finger, he can easily disrupt maybe the double dash from Jumpa, the double dash from inbound, and that could be the pure initiation stripped away from Memory of Michael.
Well, I just have to assume that the primary reason Zaxi locked in Apollo here is because it's the best Hunter matchup against a Nemesis directly, since the hard CC of the Mesmerize takes away that Nemesis shield.
And with that, inbound and Jelly still making their presence in the mid lane, supports making their rotations, allowing the Hunters to just freely 1v1. And I love what Keji did. He pushed out the first wave, which is going to deny a little bit of gold against Zaxi, and then getting the red buff to ensure that his red buff will last a little longer.
The Jumper just knew that that Hog was about to come into play, and sure enough, Dwurst locks away the blue buff. Although it won't be too rough for Delaney not having that mana.
Not necessarily, because he's playing the Kukulkan. He doesn't rely on mana. He relies on the Rage. Now, if you have the MP5 regen, sure, you'll get a little bit more health sustained. But at the end of the day, it's all about keeping that Rage stacked, trying to transform into the Rage mechanic, and then getting more cooldowns.
And actually, Obey need to be careful here, because Mifflin's already poked out to around 30% HP, with Delaney having his Rage nearly stacked and ready to transform at any moment. There it goes.
Just like that. Because he was level 2, he didn't get his Vent Anger to stop the transformation, so he's forced to go into this, but it seems that Memory of Michael, they don't really care about wasting that cooldown because they're going to go straight for a blue buff invade of their own.
And the speed buff's available as well. Not sure that they want to risk it. Delaney looking to aggress already.
He's collapsed in a 1v3. There's a little bit of miscommunication there as Jelly getting stunned out by Crimson. Now is Jumpa in a little bit of a 1v3. Jelly not going to use that pluck quite yet. Instead, retreating under the safety of his tier 2 tower. Now, speed buff looked at.
Fortunately for Jelly, he did have his pluck already leveled up, but it's not going to save the life of that speed buff. Is Jelly actually coming really close to dying?
The shell is even better, trying to get a position. But the monolith blocks the pluck. What a play coming out of inbound.
That was, talk about reflexes. Like, reflexes are absolutely insane when it comes to those moments.
That's like one of those moments where you drop the on her pillar, the Loki decoy in front of the Sobek, and you get one of those highlight reel plays. I haven't really seen it too often with a monolith, but when I do, it's pretty spicy.
Jeff actually just had a pretty hot one the other day. It was on Reddit, actually. Jeff did a great monolith block stun.
Was it on stream?
It was on stream, yeah. It was in the SPL.
Oh, well then.
It was pretty hot.
Some spicy plays from the SPL and the SCL to follow all Smite action around the globe. Obey Alliance with that first death from their support. Not the worst character in the world to give a first blood. You're giving the enemy support the first blood, and then your support dies. So that's probably best case scenario.
It's still beneficial, though, for inbound on that Terra, considering he'll be able to finish off his boots before Jelly. Jelly's going to be slightly trailing behind as far as XP is concerned, so the team fights on the buff invades could start to become problematic.
Kenji left alone in the left side because Zaxy's coming back with fully finished Ninja Tabby. Just now hitting level 6 is Kenji, but Zaxy will get credited with 4 of the 6 minions here. So he's slightly ahead in terms of the experience per minute.
But Zaxy has to play out this laning phase pretty carefully. Hui tends to benefit heavily against these dash gods for that reason alone. If you're able to find that stun underneath the suns, you can poke out the enemy ADC so quickly. And on top of that, usually a Hui jump can catch an Apollo off guard.
Calculated risk versus reward. Dropping the ult there, there's not going to be too much pressure in the duel lane. At least that's what the mindset of Kenji is by dropping that ultimate freely. On top of that, he wanted to clear the wave as quickly as possible to get the red and the back harpy off of cooldown, maximizing his farm now on top of Zaxy in experience per minute.
Speaking of which, Jumpa trying to boost his solo laner's lead just a little bit further, instead opting to take the wave since his solo laner still hasn't made his way back.
I mean, you might as well. If your solo laner is not going to be there, you don't want to waste any sort of experience under that tier 1 tower. Dwarves is going to fall back alongside Mifflin, trying to secure their own blue buff with inbound here. They're trying to invade. There's 4 members of Memory of Michael right around this corner.
But Mifflin getting the better end of that poke war between himself and Jumpa. Dwarves going up into the ultimate now, trying to defend this blue buff, and instead it's going to be the Terra's Blessing popped out.
The final judgment not on the mark for Delta Marine. Nemesis ultimate onto Mifflin as Jelly comes out from the water. Double root into play, sets up the supernova. Shell being used just to buy a little bit more time. Delta Marine falling the first one of this engagement as Jelly gets crushed under those walls. Landing from the sky is Zaxy trying to make his statement there, but the pluck actually disrupts the flow a little bit.
But inbound's able to get away because of the dash on the Terra. Jumpa actually finding Jelly on the backside. Fortunately for Zaxy, he's able to find a kill, completely making up for whatever farm he missed in the duel lane with that bounty.
Jelly plucked at the same time that Zaxy dashed. Slight miscommunication there as they went on to 2 different targets. Zaxy not able to really save his support there. So 2 for 1 at the end of the day, favoring Memory Michael.
And Dwarf's actually getting a little bit feisty with Delaney underneath that tower, just reminding him that he's more than happy to try and go back-to-back with the boxing.
A lot of experience missed by Zaxy for making that rotation, allowing the network to slowly favor out Keshi. However, he's able to pick up some farm along the mid-wave in response to rotating, with the oracles now being done on the left. Zaxy and Keshi constantly going back and forth with his little battles.
Practically break neck neck between these two hunters, but for Kenji, not making that rotation puts a little bit more strain onto his team, although they're understanding that a Huiyi just isn't going to be able to rotate at the same speed.
There's just no way that you could possibly do it. I wouldn't be surprised if Kenji just consistently tries to sit in the lane, poke out Zaxi before the Devil Gloves does get complete, using that ultimate to control a lot of space and look for those plays. He wasn't able to do it last time, but knowing him as a hunter player, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for round 2.
Whenever Kenji finishes off the Devourer's gauntlets, though, and maybe starts building into the Executioner, Obey is going to have to be careful with the rotations from Zaxi to make sure that, in memory of Michael, don't try to get a sneaky Gold Fury going.
Inbound, stunning out Jelly, but a little too far away was Crimson, not without any cooldowns to follow up. Speed and Blue have respawned for memory of Michael, trying to secure for themselves. Balance. They either don't know about these buffs being up or they don't necessarily care, despite the difference of the timers of their own buffs.
Obey's farming has still been very efficient when you think about it, because in memory of Michael had the first blood 400 gold bounty, and even with that, the Obey is still only trailing by an odd 500-600 gold.
2v2 constantly in the solo lane, just not allowing either of these two solo laners to farm freely, and that's not really helpful for Dwarfs that really needs to get to that level 12 mark, trying to get Blink and make a huge statement in these mid-game team fights.
For Dwarfs, it's all about trying to control the laning phase, and that's difficult to do against the Kukulkan, especially when the Nemesis keeps making special guest appearances.
That's what you need to do as a jungler if your name is Nemesis. Just don't allow the solo lane that kind of free farm. Don't allow him to get too tanky, at least without punishing him in the process. Jelly finding the pluck onto Inbound. It was actually Jumpa that used his beads instead. A little fearful.
I think that Jumpa accidentally hit those beads again, but can't say for sure. I can say, though, that Inbound is getting locked down by Dwarfs. However, Dwarfs doesn't have enough cooldowns in order to pursue this any further.
The ultimate was already used just to poke out the Terra, but that's still a successful engagement, knowing that the Terra has to back, doesn't really have enough health to sit around and use her kit offensively.
Same story told, though, for Delta Marine. He also had a back to base due to the pressure being applied by memory of Michael, and now Jumpa trying to work his way into the blue buff yet again.
Trying to make the rotation as both of these hunters, but the action's on the right, clipping 2 members from a distance. Crimson setting up kill on both of them. 3 members dead from Obey Alliance. Memory of Michael walk away clean, and they're going to get a speed buff for a good measure.
I'm pretty sure that final judgment just hit 3 people.
Wow.
I think that it actually clipped all 3 of them. And with that, memory of Michael are just super boosting themselves further ahead. I would have to assume Gold Fury is the next attempt here.
I don't look at luck as a possibility here for Crimson, because I believe that's when opportunity meets preparation, but it just seems that they're making this opportunity so easy for Crimson. Obey Alliance are just constantly grouped up.
Jelly had the right mindset there, and that was to look to punish Jumpa for venturing into that blue buff where 3 members of Obey were present. It's just so unfortunate that when he plucked, he immediately was collapsed on by everyone else from a memory of Michael, recognizing that the Sobek had no escape.
It's still a relatively early game for Crimson to do his damage. Only level 9, Book of Thoth finished. The Pen Boots just now finished off of this first bag. Didn't have it available for that last engagement. Had we seen Pen Boots, the 3-man hit would have been probably a triple kill off of that one ability.
I would have to assume so as well. He's already doing a lot of damage, and he's only level 9 so far.
Almost sitting at level 10. A little bit of action in the solo lane, using the ultimate from Delny, recognizing that he's going to transform back into the human form, so you might as well use this cooldown, not allowing Dwarves any breathing room, especially knowing he doesn't have the health chalice.
And Dwarves getting knocked up, using his ultimate to try and put some hurting onto Delny, but Delny is going to be able to get out from underneath that tower. Jumpa is going to clean up Dwarves, but the same could be said potentially for Mifflin.
The juke is really good. Terra's Blessing is being used. He jumps over, but not in time. Shell is good to save Delny's life for the moment. Final Judgment being channeled, but no one's really low enough to use it on Jumpa. It's going to get rooted into place here. Now finally making the rotation back. Supernova will take out Jumpa.
Excellent Supernova. Even though it wasn't entirely on the mark, it still cut off that path of escape from Jumpa, which still accomplishes Delta Marine's cleanup kill. 2,000
gold is memory of Michael in the lead, heading into 12 minutes almost of playing the second game after Obey Alliance won the first game relatively cleanly once they got to that mid portion where they finally found an answer for Crimson.
It's still going to be a rough road for oBe Alliance just because this Nemesis is now posing a little bit more difficulties than before.
We really haven't talked about Jumpa too much here. It's just been the whole Crimson show, but he has this 2-level lead over Mifflin. What's going on in the jungle here, Taco?
It's hard for a Ravana to exert as much pressure against a Nemesis because any time that Mifflin tries to immune the slow with his overhead kick, it's just immediately Jumpa taking advantage of that situation with his ultimate.
Blue buff yet again being looked at by Michael. They're going to force members of oBe out of the area, plucking away into the speed buff is Jelly, just saying, nope, you can have my blue buff. I don't want it that badly anyway.
Except Dwarst has a hog available, so he's going to be able to clean that one up, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, it was still Delaney.
Zaxby's in the sky with the Apollo ultimate, looking for a target to land on. Not on the mark, onto Jump, but charging that ultimate is Crimson. Not connecting, rather, a little bit too far out of range as Delaney gets plucked in. Supernova doing his job as Zaxby is there before Keji to make that first kill happen of this fight.
That was a great stun, though, onto Zaxby, forcing out his purification beads. Jumpa might have the opportunity here to clean up Jelly, but the dash is going to save his life.
The stun is so good onto Mifflin, landing his Keji back on down, ruining Zaxby and Mifflin into place. Jelly falls to Keji. That's a 2-for-1 trade as Delaney gets avenged.
And Crimson still shooting over the wall at Zaxby, but Dwarves easily finding Inbound, who is just looking to have the back.
2 for 2, responding the support for the support. Speed buff was stripped away, I do believe, unless Mifflin picked it up for himself. Delta Marine forced to go into beads just to ensure he would stop taking damage from Crimson, but Keji, he doesn't care. He has life still. He's soloing the Portal Demon.
And I was right the first time. Dwarst actually was able to secure his own blue buff with his hog, just couldn't pick it up right away due to the fact that there were so many members from In Memory of Michael hanging around there. And now with zero vision on the Gold Fury, Zaxby feels more than confident to start this one up.
Doesn't really have the DPS to do this quite yet, but Memory of Michael, they don't know. They went straight to their red buff instead. The rest of oBe Alliance are going to get free Gold Fury at 13 minutes in.
Well, what they didn't know before, they certainly know now, thanks to that global sound off of the Gold Fury secure. And already, oBe Alliance, once again, trying to keep this gold lead under control, but more importantly, keeping that experience lead in check.
The veteran calls from oBe Alliance, new hunter, old hunter, it doesn't matter. They're so objective-minded that if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Gold Fury's putting oBe Alliance slightly back into the game here.
Portal Demon at least being secured by In Memory of Michael, so they do have that factor in play, and they won't be able to go towards oBe Alliance's favor. Still, not much action getting ready to happen in this mid lane. Seems as though both teams want to just take a second to kind of wait and see what's going to happen next.
Inbound, though, with a 2-level lead, trying to lead the charge with Jumpa, who also has about a 1 to 2 level lead. These two frontliners from Memory of Michael are trying to abuse their level lead, not allowing oBe Alliance any sort of control. Terra's Blessing being used. Keji forced to jump away, landing his Zaxby under his own tier 1 tower. Final Judgment fires, connects onto doors, but misses Jolly in the distance. Delny is forced to zone out so many members, almost takes out Jelly. Supernova being used as Delny pops a shell. He's trying to retreat. That tier 1 tower finally falls.
And it's going to be Mifflin now getting ulted by the Nemesis, able to cleanse that with the ultimate of his own. But either way, Memory of Michael walking away with the T1 tower, eliminating that defensive aspect from oBe.
The advantage is just favoring Memory of Michael, at least in the experience category, respectively 1 to 2 levels between all the frontliners, and that's something that oBe Alliance usually try to exploit instead. They're the ones that drafted these 3 melee characters first, but it really hasn't been working out for them. The control slightly favoring the order side.
And already, the player development In Memory of Michael has experienced between Game 1 and Game 2 is very evident, focusing a little bit more off of trying to secure objectives around the picks that they managed to find. And that's really what shows and highlights just how well these players are able to adapt to these situations.
We're sitting a little low here on the right-hand side. Jumper can easily dive this if he wants to. There is no safe haven of that tier 1 tower, but not wanting to risk it for the biscuit. Without that Nemesis ultimate, Zaxi is left alone here for the time being, but with only 3 archers under that tier 1 tower, that's not enough of a meat shield to get any sort of tower damage off.
Not enough just yet, but either way, Zaxi having that global ultimate means that the start of the Apollo split push is probably only just begun. Keji isn't going to be able, he's going to have to make a choice, and so will the rest of In Memory of Michael. Do we want to pressure the team fight, or do we want to defend our towers? And Zaxi is most likely at some point during this game starting to look for the split push.
And who from Memory of Michael is there to respond to the split push potential?
They have to make a sacrifice for a team fight, and if they do send a member over, that's the immediate Apollo ult in.
Obey Alliance trying to spread Memory of Michael thin with this Apollo pick, despite them being down. A little bit of gold, a little bit of experience. They do have that late game tactic just to kind of create a little bit of a diversion and get back into this one, trying to force something to happen as Terra's Blessing being popped. Delny trying to get Delta Marine out. The sun's raining on the left. Jelly using the waters just to slow down Memory of Michael in their track, but he gets stunned and he dies by Delny's hands.
Unfortunately for Jelly, he started off that engagement with his pluck, and recognizing that again In Memory of Michael looked to punish the Croc, and they're successful.
Shell, I think, was just off of cooldown, as well as Mifflin's that pops back. Perfect timing from Memory of Michael, utilizing the cooldowns to their knowledge.
They still have the ultimate as well from Crimson in their favor, as well as Delny's being available. So now Obey Alliance are going to have to do their best to try and defend this T1 tower, and it's only Zaxi standing by their side.
Trying to get the damage off, and it's good onto Delta Marine. He's going to have to run all the way back, but from behind, Jumpa forcing the Aegis out of the mid-mage soul. Delny going to dive even further, doing his work, trying to zone out both of these hyper carries. Dwarfs now eating a Nemesis ultimate for his troubles, jumping on in as Jumpas, he gets that kill.
It wasn't just the Nemesis ultimate, that Mark of the Crow and the enhance from Keji are really starting to hurt on top of that Nemel.
Zaxi in the sky, thinking about who he's going to land on. 4 members are a little, 3 members are a little low here rather, jumping on it into inbound, messing out 3, dashing back into his own safety of his tower, forcing out even the Suns, not on the mark with that pluck is Jelly. The rest of Memory of Michael, though, they're not done yet. They still feel that they could get this tower.
But it might be a close call, and instead they feel more comfortable backing off. Mifflin, on the other hand, quietly split pushing away. There's a reason he didn't make an appearance in the duo lane, and it's because he was taking In Memory of Michael's T2.
Who needs a split push Apollo when you have a split push Robin? Jelly trying to do what he can to delay the back from Memory of Michael, trying to find some picks to follow suit. A lot of damage, forcing out the Aegis here. The pluck is good. Crimson falling to Jelly.
Everybody from Memory of Michael stayed just a little bit too long, and now Jumpa's trying to find the return kill, but he's going to get cleansed of his shield because
oh, the Mystic Rush from Mifflin just cleaning up Jumpa. Gold Fury being started by Obey Alliance, taking advantage of these 2 free picks. Delny knocking up 2, but he's not in time to steal away this Gold Fury. Credited to Obey Alliance. However, Keji taking out Zaxi.
But Keji doesn't have his jump available, so he's going to have to eat up some of that damage from Obey Alliance instead, looking to secure Dwarfs as he's surrounded entirely in the Gold Fury.
Being used inside the pit, but it's just not realistically enough. Dwarfs doing what he can. He blinks away, but Delny, he's not willing to give up the chase quite yet. Actually, he will select himself to go towards the mid lane instead, getting slowed by that Stellar Burst. What a clean getaway from Obey Alliance after getting their second Gold Fury.
Dwarfs got the Juke Boots out today, getting away in that sort of situation that seemed like he was going to die. It was pretty much inevitable, and then he just escapes.
It's such a great performance from Obey Alliance, because this just goes to show, even if you're down and out, it's not always about the kills that read the scoreboard on top. It's also about the little scores next to it. The Gold Furies are the most important ones, and thus far, Obey Alliance with both of them.
And that was just Obey not wanting to waste any time whatsoever, recognizing that Crimson had in fact fallen to Jelly. They knew that they could pressure that Gold Fury without having to really worry about the steal.
And Memory of Michael just isn't making the objective plays happen like we were talking about. They're a group of young, talented players, but they need the right shot calling in order to elevate them to the next level, because they can find the kill as easy peasy. It's not something new to them, but they need these objectives.
Speaking of which, Portal Demon being aggressed on by oBe Alliance, and the ultimate from Crimson just destroys.
Crimson is so accurate with his final judgment. You have to respect these abilities coming from the Thor. I'm expecting so many bans in the future against Crimson. Portal Demon being started by Memory of Michael. Nice ultimate from Dwarfs. They get stolen by oBe Alliance. They're not done being objective-minded.
The Rage chase by in Memory of Michael will find 2 members of oBe, and this actually leaves an avenue for the Fire Giant, even though the portal is up. Instead, playing it safe in Memory of Michael, looking for the T2 tower first.
Using the Monolith to sustain a little bit further. They could even extend towards the Phoenix if they wanted to, but with these short respawn timers of Zaxi and Jelly in 10 seconds, not willing to risk it quite yet. Might be another baiting opportunity here of starting this Fire Giant. Jumpa looking to cut off the angle here. He took a lot of damage, but he healed most of it back up with that one Nemesis shield.
Until Delta Marine put it right back down again. Crimson's not the only one dealing a ton of damage. Delta Marine is doing work on this Soul.
Crimson was thinking about firing that trigger, and with that portal, every dead member from oBe now back in the thick of things. Diving is Jelly, finding Deli, slowing him down. Final Judgment yet again finds its home onto Delta Marine, and without Delta Marine there present to use constant stellar burst, use the supernova the way he wants to, that's going to be a huge advantage for Memory of Michael.
Delta Marine trying to rely on his self-heal at the moment from his first ability to get him back into the action, but he's still just a little bit too low on mana either way. Gonna have to be relying on these enhanced. Nice little triple bounce coming out onto Zaxi and Jelly.
Terra's Blessing being used, trying to find the control. Stun's being used as well. Mifflin's used to his ultimate, trying to get there, but if he goes any further, the walls would collapse a little bit too soon, though. Was inbound. Delny doing what he can to set up the stun, and the rest of oBe Alliance took way more damage than they wanted to. Now it's Memory of Michael with huge positioning control around his Fire Giant.
Everybody is just barely hanging on for oBe, but they're still staying alive long enough to come back into it, and this is what oBe loves to do. One by one, they will steadily try to delay this Fire Giant, although for Jelly, it might be too little too late.
Zaxi landing in the back. Kedge is going to land on top of that Apollo, baiting himself out even further. He's going to dash away, get slowed, forced into the beads to make sure he doesn't take any further enhance from that Nemesis.
But it's perfect for oBe, because just when you thought that Jelly wasn't going to be able to zone by himself and keep the rest of Memory of Michael off of the Fire Giant, they accomplish it because Zaxi makes the rotation in time, gets the Mez off onto the backline, and causes enough of a distraction for in Memory of Michael to think about pursuing the kill.
That's the global pressure that a god in Smite can provide. Whether you're playing Thor, Task, or Apollo, doesn't really matter. You're positioning yourself in such a way that you're diving that backline, even as a squishy hunter, to be able to create confusion, allow your front line to follow suit and look for the plays.
And all around, really have to credit that one to oBe for holding on to another defense of that Fire Giant. They didn't even have the Portal Demon to make it back over there, just holding on to their members. And really, it's just going to come down to who can kill Crimson.
It's going to come down to who can get this next Gold Fury, as it's Respawn and oBe Alliance are there first. They have the timer necessary. I believe that Kedge could look to stop it here, but the rest of Memory of Michael looking to farm things up. They don't have the greatest vision in the world. Look around Fire Giant. It's all oBe Alliance.
And that's exactly the position that oBe Alliance needs to have against a Thoth. When Zaxi was taken out by the Portal Demon from the Final Judgment, he was standing right on top of a ward. So it's not even just the choke points that oBe Alliance has to be wary of. They got to start dropping random wards everywhere.
Jumpa gonna get collapsed on here, plugged in a world of hurt. Supernova not enough to find the kill, but the Mystic Rush Wheel from Mifflin finding Jumpa and his death. Jelly taking a lot of damage as Delny gets up and down. Delta Marine relatively safe here with Zaxi right by his side. The rest of Memory of Michael wants a revenge.
and it's going to be Dwurst actually tossing two members of a Memory of Michael towards their backline, hoping for the damage. Instead, Erupt Crimson cleaning up Mifflin on the backside. You've got Inbound trying to chase down everybody else, but Zaxi and Jelly, Marine, they're all out.
Another 1-for-1. Obey with 7 kills, Memory of Michael with 16. Finally going for the Gold Fury. The first two were in Obey's hands, but Dwurst is too far away to stop this one. Almost there, about 2 or 3 more seconds. He probably would have had a steal.
Extends their gold lead a little bit further, but it's still not enough to where a Memory of Michael really have a huge sigh of relief happening. They still need to be very careful of what Obey's draft can put out.
It's all about the little morale, though, for your mentality, because if there was no more Gold Furies for Memory of Michael, they'd be like, man, can we just get one Gold Fury? The frustration factor will eventually sink into the order side and making things more difficult than it needs to be. The rest of Obey wanting to stop this portal demon, but not going past that midline marker.
That was a cute bounce by Keji, taking away the Magi's from Jelly.
Not
Never
too
really
shabby.
expecting it.
Calculated, I would say, if I was Keji. That's exactly what he's probably saying to his teammates. Sitting pretty at that level 20 mark as to who he does a lot of late game damage. Not at the top of the charts. That is respectfully Crimson's position for the whole entire set.
And this was the same story for Crimson in the last game as well. Seems to be trying to run it back, and now Jumpa's actually trying to run down Mifflin. Mifflin getting incredibly low, forced into the ultimate. Finally, Jumpa's purification beads also being tossed out.
And that's going to be a 5-on-4 until Mifflin backs and heals on up. Portal Demon will be started up here. It's already sitting at half health. Final Judgment being started. It's going to be used. Clips Delta Marine in the distance. Michael secures the objective here. Means that Mifflin has to run back to this team fight. It's going to take him quite a bit of time. No kills on either side, but objective going the way of Memory of Michael.
Zaxi's damage output, though, is nothing to sleep on. Even though he's only sitting at right underneath 14,000 player damage, no one from a Memory of Michael wants to just full throttle into this Apollo because of the triple crit build he has going. All it takes is 2-3 auto attacks and you're basically out of the fight.
Especially with his Audacity passive stacks, it's going to give 6 easy 100% increased attack speed in hand to really melt some of these frontliners. Mifflin forced to disengage with his speed buff and the sprint.
And already in Memory of Michael really wanting to lock away this Fire Giant could be posing a little bit of a problem, though, because Obey definitely not one to give up an objective like that.
28.5 minutes into the game. Memory of Michael. It feels that they should be more in control than they already are, but Obey Alliance have been taking good measures to slow the game down the way they want to. The control from both teams is clearly evident. Dwurst is trying to find it, but he's 4 levels behind Delny.
And Keji just tossing out any sort of ricochet to find. Jumpa actually being the first one pulled into the entirety of Obey, but he'll be able to dash right out of there as Keji gets a couple of nice crits onto Jelly.
Not able to really find anything after the pluck from Jumpa, but didn't force any relics out of him either, so a nice little wash considering Jumpa could have been collapsed on a little bit harder there.
But check out that ward control again by Obey Alliance. They have the control on the lower end side of the Fire Giant, around the right mid Harpies, top choke point of the right hand mid Harpies, as well as just on the Fire Giant in general.
Keji practicing his triple ricochet at this point. He knows the angle necessary to find it off that one rock back towards the Portal Demon wall, and then a little bit closer between that speed blue buff wall. Very important to know your angles as a Hu Yi player.
Always great, and just in the fact that if you get a triple bounce onto a squishy god, you're typically going to do enough damage to where your team might be encouraged to go in. Speaking of which, getting a lot of poke out onto Mifflin and forcing out Mifflin's ult, actually.
The discipline from Memory of Michael not to go past that point. They could have easily used the Terra's Blessing for the extra mobility, knowing that the sprint was on cooldown from Mifflin. Could have caught up to him.
With that ult having been forced out by Mifflin and the members of Obey starting to spread out a little bit more, I want to see in Memory of Michael pressure this Fire Giant. They have enough damage now, plus the secure from Crimson, that could easily look to bait into a fight.
Jelly was lucky enough to pluck away before the root happened, and that would have popped his Magai's Blessing to maybe set up a stun later down the road for Crimson. Finally, Memory Michael will flirt with the idea of the Fire Giant. Dwurst is here. Fire Giant half health at the moment. Mono being used in the backside to heal. Keji taking a lot of damage from Mifflin. On the top side, though, being clipped is Duers. Not hitting the target he would have wanted to, but still dealing a lot of damage.
And already poking out Mifflin to half health. Delny, however, stuck in a really tight position as he's getting pulled in by Jelly.
Man, knock him. No one to follow up, however. Delny will transform. He's doing a lot of damage to Delta Marine, rooting the two hyper carries in place. Crimson slays the Fire Giant. Keji slays Jelly. It's a 5-on-4 for Memory of Michael. They're chasing down Duers. He uses his ultimate before he dies, but it's just not enough to make an impact.
And check out how low Zaxi is. He might not be able to escape from Crimson, considering that his dash should be coming up any second. Is able to get away just in time, so there will be 3 members left from Obey to try and defend.
This is the play that Memory of Michael needs to make. The confident play. 5-on-3. Let's go. Let's get this Phoenix, boys. And that's exactly what they do. They still have Fire Giant for another 3.5 minutes in. It's looking pretty for Memory of Michael to find a split.
Can't see these two T2 towers standing for much longer for Obey. And Memory of Michael are definitely a force to be reckoned with right now, having that Fire Giant power buff as well as the health regen.
Still having some buffs on their left side to follow. The red and the purple stand strong alongside the Gold Fury. And this is a good timing to be able to get more gold under their pocket. They don't have all 6 item slots filled up. But with this path that Memory Michael are currently going under, it's almost time.
I'd say it's about that time as well. And I mean, everybody is practically full build now. It's really just Jumpa and Crimson waiting to finish everything off. Keji just bought that Wind Demon. He's ready to completely chase down anyone.
There's so much damage coming out of Keji. 3-0-7 without a single death. He's able to peel for himself. He's able to really capitalize off of the setup from inbound, playing this Terra 2 games in a row, doing a lot of work to set up not only Keji, but also Crimson.
Before that Fire Giant fight broke out as well, it was just Mifflin trying to tackle on these 2 hyper carries for In Memory of Michael. Crimson and Keji just easily chunking away at his health because Delany was doing such a phenomenal job zoning out 4 members of Obey.
Slow and steady is the pace for Memory of Michael. They're wanting to push out middle and left at the same time, and this is a great timing to do so considering how long they have Fire Giant before. Another minute and 50 seconds, and with that tower down, they could look to ward a little bit more, but there's no sentry wards on place here on the left side for Memory Michael.
But these Thoth walls combined with the creep waves are just making such an impact in sieging these objectives. They're getting completely destroyed by the in-hand damage from In Memory of Michael.
With that sentry wall on the left, that could be a good position for Crimson to look for the ultimate. Terra's Blessing being used. Delta Marine is forced out on the right side is actually Crimson as he's looking to maybe charge up his ultimate yet again. Delly doing a good job zoning out Zaxi. The 2 hyper carries. Nowhere to go is Delta Marine. Crimson yet again with another beautiful snipe.
Right around the wall. Delta Marine never saw it coming, but now he knows that it's probably going to be the end. This Phoenix is not going to last for much longer. This rest of Memory of Michael's trying to pile in there.
And gonna find another kill is Crimson. Onto Jelly, the Titan has been exposed. Mifflin taking a lot of damage of the crits. Entering the Titan room, Zaxy's gonna force the beads. He's trying to survive for as long as he can. The shell will buy him some time for the moment as he's gonna heal back up.
Inbound taking a little bit more damage than what he would have wanted to from that Titan, but now even with those 2 picks secured, In Memory of Michael still respecting Obey Alliance's damage output enough to back off and choose the safe route of just letting the Fireways push for themselves.
Oh man, if Zaxi dies there, that could easily be game. Memory of Michael were certainly feeling themselves after the 2 quick picks coming from Crimson, who's had a remarkable performance on this stuff, not only game 2, but even in the losing game 1.
I'm fairly certain that Delta Marine didn't even get an opportunity to launch his ultimate, so not having that DPS available in the teamfight really hurt Obey's chances of holding on to that mid-Phoenix.
Honestly, your finger needs to be on the Aegis Amulet every time you hear that Thoth ultimate coming. Even if you don't necessarily see it, if you hear it, just pop that relic just for safety.
The problem is, whenever the calamity of all these other abilities from a Memory of Michael are happening, it can be super difficult to even hear that Thoth ultimate being charged. That's one of the many reasons why having these walls around the corners and why ward vision around the corners is so important against a Thoth team, because Crimson's gonna be looking for every single opportunity he can find, and even the slightest bit of downtime, he's just looking to launch that final judgment.
And oBe Alliance, they originally did have the vision control between the mid and the side lanes, but then it was Memory of Michael that slowly inched forward past the tier 2 towers. Once those two were demolished, that's when the sentry wards were placed by the Order side, and allows Crimson a lot of mobility and safety to get the long distance snipes out there. Keji securing the Fire Giant, second one for Memory of Michael, and they're looking to close things out very quickly here, Taco.
That Fire Giant was alive for all of 3 seconds. The damage output right now from a Memory of Michael is so hard to deal with, and if I'm oBe, my best bet is to just keep trying to find the fight off of the Phoenix, but not rely on the bird. Oh my!
Half of his health off of one stun from Crimson, charging the final judgment, not pulling the trigger against Zaxi yet again. The stun is good onto Mifflin through the wall. A clean pick against oBe Alliance. It's a 5-on-4. The middle Phoenix is downed already. Right side has followed. 2 dead from oBe. The rest of Memory of Michael are going in as Crimson gets another one.
Crimson is absolutely on fire, just completely destroying oBe Alliance. He's doing this team so dirty right now.
The fighter minions are here. Jelly taken out by Jumpa. All split by Memory of Michael as they're looking to close this one out. All 5 members of oBe are dead, and Memory of Michael get 1 point out of this set.
Talk about a bounce back match. The comeback from a Memory of Michael, not necessarily in that match in particular, but in the set, for them to find the player mentality to power through after losing the first match and immediately back and refresh. That is just phenomenal gameplay.
There's just constant momentum after every ability that Crimson does. Every single pick that's on the screen for Crimson just boils the blood for the rest of his teammates to be able to follow through and find more and more picks. Whenever you have a mid-mage that could do things like that, you gotta follow through and look for the kills, and that's exactly what Memory of Michael did in game number 2, securing the multiple Fire Giants and closing out the game for a split.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't think that Crimson should ever be allowed to have Thoth again in his competitive career.
I want to watch Crimson all day. I'm going to go back to the office and just rewatch both games 1 and games 2 for Crimson.
That was great debut by Crimson on that Thoth. He had the positioning all over the place. His team backed him up efficiently, and also well played to oBe Alliance in game number 1.
Absolutely. Jumpa, though, in game number 2 on the Nemesis did a lot of work in terms of being that backline penetrator, absorbing a lot of cooldowns, using that Nemesis shield to its fullest advantage, and he didn't allow a lot of escapes here, and there was a lot of invades also onto the blue buff against oBe this game.
You have to appreciate a Memory of Michael's persistency around the buffs of oBe Alliance. Even though they were unsuccessful 1 or 2 times, they still never let up on that pressure, recognizing that their composition was favored a little bit more, considering that you have Dwurst on that Xing 10. He's not going to be able to defend his buffs as well. Even if that Hog is available, the fight potential is still there.
The front line from oBe Alliance was picked early in the second game draft, but it didn't do them any justice here. Their justice was from Jumpa on this Nemesis, just all over the place, finding the kills here. And it seems to me that Memory of Michael just kind of outdid oBe Alliance in their own strategy of the frontliners.
Next to Crimson's gameplay on the Thoth, that was still, my mind is still blown by that, but I really do think that the Nemesis completely foiled the plans for oBe Alliance, because it was really the difference between game 1 and game 2 for me. Jumpa's had great target focus, and all around, because of that, his team was able to capitalize off of whoever he ulted.
And with that 1-1 split here between these two teams, let's take a look at the schedule to see what remains here for the SCL North America, where we saw earlier on today Astral Authority 2-0 Soar, IMOM splits with oBe. Next to follow is going to be Elevate against Strictly Business.
And all these teams are really starting to come to play. You could tell that the competition in North America right now for the console scene is incredibly close.
Things are getting really spicy here today in week number 2, and so don't go anywhere. So we're going to take a quick break for the last set of the day.